Hello, welcome back to my channel. So, it is the 15th of April, which means if I do an update tonight, I'm kind of back on track for doing a weekly update again on the 21st or 22nd for the next week. So, we're doing that. Yes. I still have a bit of a cough. Better, but not great. So I'm down to coffee that I can, hopefully keep my throat from acting up too much while talking. So hopefully this works. So I did finish a few books since my last update, which was less than a week ago. So I think I did my update on the 11th. That was when I did my last one. Anyway, I decided I definitely should do an update, though, tonight, not just for the weekly update, so the next one doesn't have to be so long, but also I added another buddy read-ish sort of book to what I'm reading that I actually started this afternoon, so I'm about a third of the way through it, actually. So I was on Nicole's sprints, Nicole at Noteworthy Fiction. And she was reading Effi Briest by Theodor Fontane. German literature. Classic German literature. This is while the German Empire still has an emperor, classic German. So it's kind of a fun one. I don't read that many pieces of German literature that are pre-modern, I suppose. I've read a few, and a couple that are right before things start changing, leading up to the First World War and the Second World War and all that. Yeah, so it's not an era of German literature I've read a lot of, but I've read enough that I'm not new to it. So, and Nicole was having issues with this book. Enough that she's maybe soft DNFing it or setting it aside and reading something else for a little bit and going back to it. But she was enjoying it. And I thought, well, it's actually on one of the lists that I'm reading. I'm pretty sure it's on Boxall's 1001 Books You Must Read Before You Die list, actually. But I know it's on my list of things I should be reading. Whether it's Boxall or the Guardian list, it's one of those. And I have a book by the same author that I got from a free shelf about a month or so ago. So I have Before the Storm, also by Theodor Fontane. So it fit in nicely with what I'm already doing. The audiobook is only about, 8 or 9 hours. I'll have to double check and make sure it's the whole thing. So I will be double checking and going back and forth with the ebook as well. Because nice thing about old books, they are on Project Gutenberg. So I can make sure that I'm getting everything and check spellings and all that stuff. Yeah, and I will probably go back and reread bits, especially if Nicole decides to pick up her book and read it some more and discuss and ask questions and stuff. I did make a thread for it, or a channel for it, on my Discord. So I actually am stopping reading / listening to Effi Briest right now for the rest of tonight. And I'll go back and re-listen to the part I've gotten to so far. And, while I'm house cleaning and crocheting and stuff. Just so that I catch whatever I missed the first time through. Since it is kind of sort of a buddy read. Sort of. in that there's somebody else reading it, and the whole point of reading it is that somebody else is reading it and discussing it, maybe. Yeah, it's spontaneous, and we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so before there was a thing called Buddy Reads, I think this is how we used to do it. Just, oh, you're reading that? Oh, I'll pick it up and read it too. And now we have terms for that, and we call it Buddy Reads. Anyway, so I added it to my Discord. I will be posting some notes as I do my second time through the first third of it. And probably read the Wikipedia page and other things that I find about it as well. Yeah, so that's new for my plans, but fits in nicely, and guaranteed the 1800s are way before 1997, so it works for my rules. Yeah, so that's going on, and I've also added Before the Storm to my TBR for this month. It was already kind of in the books I could consider, but I will see if I can get to it as well this month. I don't know if there will be an audiobook for it, because it's not nearly as commonly known as Effi Briest, but it is still well enough known that they made it into a nice edition. So hopefully somebody thought to make a LibriVox recording of it. Yeah, so books I finished, and this will be a shorter one than last time, but not by a lot considering it's only been a couple days. So the book I finished today, I started it yesterday, is The Bostonians by Henry James. Now, Commissario Brunetti's wife, Paola, in the Donna Leon series, really, really likes Henry James. She gushes about him. She's a huge fan. She would definitely get him to sign a body part if he wasn't long dead by the time she and her fiction world exists. Yeah, so I keep trying Henry James. I didn't mind this book so much. Some of the characters are a little annoying, but that's not anything about Henry James necessarily. So in this book, we have two Bostonian women, the Bostonians. One is more into women's rights and women's lib than the other, which comes out throughout this book. The I think younger of the two of them, her parents are also activist types, and they've pretty much groomed her to be an activist of the type that goes around and does public speaking and tours of women's lib speeches, which is interesting. So she's basically been brainwashed into this culture, and it is written like that, that she's been brainwashed. It's possible that Henry James is doing some sort of commentary about that women's lib is an unnatural thing for women, except that that's not necessarily consistent with what some of the characters that you're obviously supposed to like are also saying. So he seems to be trying to feel out multiple sides around this issue of women's rights and women's equality. So it's interesting. Definitely, if you were in a gender studies class and needed a book to discuss that has lots of stuff to discuss, The Bostonians is a great example. Yeah. So the daughter, let's see if her name is on the back of the book. Verena, I think is her name. I don't remember how the reader pronounced it for the audiobook, but Verena. Like Serena, but with a V. Something like that. So she's the daughter. She's the one that's been groomed into this lifestyle. She is a natural at public speaking. She's a genius at public speaking. And it's debatable whether she knows, actually understands a lot of what she's saying, or whether she's just parroting stuff that she's been taught by her parents. And this is important because we have a young man whose cousin is best friends with this girl, Verena. The cousin is Olive, and the male cousin of Olive, oh my goodness, falls in love with Verena. So in this women's lib little subculture, marriage is so, of the patriarchy kind of thing. They don't use that word. That seems to be more modern than where they're at. But basically, traditional marriage is patriarchal, and they don't want to do it anymore. And, they want liberty and equality and no more marriage. And that's definitely what her parents are saying, what Verena's parents are saying. At least that's what they're pushing her to say. They are married, though. The parents are married. And they're not, getting divorced or, making it obvious they're not married just to be part of this movement. So there's a little hypocrisy going on here. And Olive really sounds like someone that nowadays would just be an open member of the LGBTQ movement. But at the time, maybe that's not something that she considers available. The way she interacts with Verena, she is in love with Verena. There's no sexualization to this relationship that I could tell. I don't think that Henry James was going there with this couple. But aside from that, they are basically a couple. At least in Olive's eyes. And she does say near the end, that she realizes that Verena is more to Olive than Olive is to Verena. And that mismatch is really what's at work in making Olive so unhappy. But yeah, Olive basically has hooked up with Verena and is keeping her for herself. And that's fine so long as both young women are not planning on marrying. They're, down with the patriarchy. But then Verena kind of is falling in love with Olive's cousin, who's a boy. And Olive is just incensed by this idea, to the extent that at some point she secrets Verena away from being able to contact the male cousin, and kind of hides her in an escape. And it reminded me in that section of The Long Fatal Love Chase that everybody was reading this week. That really cool thriller by Louisa May Alcott. For more information, check out the sprint that I will put a link for in the description, because they actually did a sprint. Nicole at Noteworthy Fiction and a bunch of other people were focusing on The Long Fatal Love Chase, and read it, and most of them finished it. There's still probably a few that haven't. But if you haven't read it, you should. It's really good. And totally not what you think of when you think Louisa May Alcott. But if you are familiar with that book, there's a section of the Bostonians where it feels like it's trying to set up for that kind of following the girl and trying to catch up with the girl, except that the guy is not a bad guy, except in Olive's head. Olive thinks that the guy is a bad guy and is basically, the villain that's going to track down the innocent young woman, and debauch her or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what Olive thinks he's going to do, actually, aside from marry Verena, which Verena's kind of okay with, actually. Anyway, so it's an interesting book. And with all that information, which is actually on some of the backs of the books, there's still a lot to this book. If you are into classics and, early women's movement stuff, this could be a fun book. I'm not sure where I think Henry James falls in whether women should have, equal rights or not and all that. I think he's sympathetic, but I'm not sure that he knows how sympathetic he actually is. He might be on the fence on a few things. But yeah, interesting book. I also finished Girl on a High Wire by Ray Foley. This one was good. It was one of those young woman shows up in an extension of her family and somehow ends up being the heiress, and everybody's dropping dead, and she's either a suspect or the next victim, and yeah. It was good. Oh my goodness. It was good, but the ending, Ray Foley apparently does not do very well at actually tying things up and ending books. At least based on this one. I haven't read anything else by Foley yet. I don't know if Ray Foley is a he, she, or they. Actually, it's a classic, though. It's a classic from 1960, I believe. So, yeah. Other than that, it was good. I've read others that are in this vein that I liked better. Mary Stewart did one that I thought was a bit better. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a lot of them that do this trope. But it was good, and if you're interested in reading more classic murder mystery thriller fiction, it was pretty good. I did a Star Trek book. Star Trek Rules of Engagement by Peter Morwood. This one pits the Star Trek, political rules of first contact and peacekeeping, that kind of stuff, against the Klingon Empire. On a planet that's in a treaty zone where the Klingons and Starfleet have an agreement that the Organians are involved in, and if the Klingons or Starfleet violates the treaty, then the other side can come in and resume conflict, basically. Without the Organians stepping in and squashing it. I'm not really sure what the Organians look like, actually. It's been a while. Anyway, it was pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to do more Star Trek this week, I think. Because it was fun. This one's maybe not the best written. There's some of them that they get so much into the nerdy stuff, the ship specs and stuff like that they don't really do very well with the characters. And this one, in addition to that, also writes Chekhov's dialogue in poorly spelled English. Like, we know he has an accent. Anyone that watches the show at all knows that Chekhov has a Russian accent. You don't need to misspell the words in his part of the dialogue. That's just annoying. Yeah, so definitely not a 5-star for me. Probably 3.75. Yeah, so not terrible. I always like Star Trek. Just not one of the ones that I could just get immersed in and forget everything. I finished H.P. Lovecraft, The Loved Dead, and Other Revisions. Not and other stories, and other revisions. This one is actually a bunch of stories written by other people, other young writers, that H.P. Lovecraft helped them with revising their stories. So I'm guessing there's some structure to this, like maybe it was a writing workshop or something. I don't know. Because that would make sense at least. But all of them have a similar enough feel that you can tell that Lovecraft was involved or at least liked them. Some of them I thought were particularly interesting because there are categories of English words that I never see in popular fiction. Never. And there's one author in here, see if I can land on it, that his vocabulary and his stories is really advanced for popular fiction. It was kind of nice, actually. I don't usually get to use those words. I'm pretty sure it was C.M. Eddy Jr. And it was just really different. Poor lighting and aging eyes. Oh my goodness. Let's see if I have my magnifier. Probably not. Okay. I will do a reading from this one. Because, yeah, I definitely need better lighting to do this one. So, during daylight, when this corner is way brighter, I'll pick a paragraph from this one and do a little reading short video, I should say. A short now is something else, but yeah, it was just unusual language for short stories in any genre, really. But that was pretty good. Overall, the stories were okay. I definitely have not read much Lovecraft, so I think one of the stories in here was his, but I don't really have a good sense yet of what his stories are like. So I need to read more Lovecraft. The other book I finished in print was The Coincidence Makers. This one actually is an arc. You can see it's an arc. I don't know if there's something on the front. Yeah, right there. It's an arc. So, Coincidence Makers by Yoav Blum. And I also found the audiobook for it because it's been a while since I got this as an arc. And now there's an audiobook, and it's definitely been published for a while. For quite a while, actually. I think I got this in 2019. Yeah, so it's been a while. But it was really good. It reminded me of the Midnight Library, but better. Midnight Library got preachy. Enough that even if I was a Christian, it would be preachy. It was just, I don't care what religion you are, at some point it got past storytelling into something else. So I'd had warnings about that before I went into it. And they were well and truly warned. Yes. So, this is a nice alternative to the Midnight Library if you like that kind of story, but also found Midnight Library just a little much. So this one's still kind of a morality tale about life and what life means, and it's not really magical realism. But like magical realism, fantasy, sort of, crossover. I don't know. It's somewhere in that range, anyway. So in this book, there are beings called coincidence makers that they can change, little things, like tweak things so that people meet at the right time, or, various things. I'm not sure who decides what the right outcome is. That actually reminded me a little bit of one of the settings in the Loki series. That the setting where they're in the agency that decides which timelines are the right timelines, that kind of thing. So definitely has that same vibe. But with the morality tale thing in there. So they are changing the course of people's lives by small tweaks, small changes that add up to big changes. And there's something funky going on with two of those coincidence makers that, it's not lining up the way they expect. And maybe somebody is tweaking their own lives, even though they're not actually humans yet. Anyway. So it's an interesting book. Very creative. Not something I've read other books exactly like, which is unusual. And I read so many books that most books I can list off a couple others that were really similar. This one, not so much. There's elements that are similar with other books, but it really was a bit more unique than most of what I've read so far this year. And it was good. I wouldn't say 5 stars. There were some bits that kind of lost me. But overall, it was good enough. It's a 4.5 star, solidly. On Goodreads, it's a 5 star, because we don't get half stars on Goodreads. So anyway, that was my print books that I finished. I also did finish a couple audiobooks during Dewey's Readathon, which happened this weekend. It was fun. Our admins did a great job. I did stay up for the whole thing, and the part that I was at work, the other admins covered it great. There were a couple scheduled posts that just didn't work, which always happens when I rely on scheduled posts for things. It just, During Dewey's, if I need to schedule posts, I'm scheduling posts on something like 5 different sites. Guaranteed one of them's not going to work. And then there was one that I totally forgot to do. So the very last sprint on Goodreads, which for my time zone was 5 o'clock in the morning. I totally forgot that I hadn't actually put it on Goodreads. I did all the other sites, just not Goodreads. So there was things like that. But overall, it went really well. We had a lot of participation, even on our WordPress, which we didn't have a lot on before. We had enough interaction on there that we actually had comments. And our WordPress has been neglected because nobody goes there. So that's going to shift a little bit in my thinking for the next one of how much to emphasize different sites. And our Discord is definitely working. I was skeptical, and I'm still a little concerned about it because we've had issues with access for admins to be able to change stuff. So I'm still on the fence about that part. Hopefully we can get it the rest of the way fixed this year sometime. But yeah, it was fun. I didn't finish as many books as I would have liked, but that always happens. But yeah, I finished 2 audiobooks by Jon Fosse. The Other Name and I Is Another. They are kind of omnibus editions of a septology, I guess. There's 7 parts, and the first one covers 3 parts, the second one covers 2 parts, and then I'm guessing there's a 3rd book that's coming out that will be the last parts. And I was concerned because it reminded me alarmingly of Knausgaard's My Life. I've read about half of his series, My Life. It's like a memoir, except that it's really, 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 really tedious. And it goes on for many pages and has something like 5 or 7, or I don't know how many volumes now. My sister loves it, so she made me read it, at least part of it. Yeah. So I was thinking it was going to be more like that, and if it was, I wasn't sure I could get through all of it. But I know that the second part of that is on the Dublin Literary Award library list. So, like, okay, I'm just going to get through this. And I did. And they actually turned out to be really good. Maybe not 5 stars, but solid 4 stars, both. Norwegian. So, yeah. Not much really that stuck. I enjoyed the experience. Definitely felt like I was immersed in a story in Norway, and so that was good. Yeah, so that was pretty much my readathon, those 2, and then switching back and forth between audiobook and print book for the Coincidence Makers, and I did some print reading, and I finished a lot of the books I started, but I started a bunch of books that I didn't finish, so this week I'm going to try and finish some more of those, which the Bostonians was one of those, that I started it near the end, and then just didn't get past the first 10 pages, but I started it, so it's in the mix. So now that's done. Yeah, my TBR for this week is gonna be a little bit different from what I thought it was gonna be, because I went to the library and I got some new books at the library bookstore, so I've added in some new books. So we'll see. Let's see if there's anything else I want to talk about. And I will be doing some buddy reads next month. That was the other thing that I have stacked up next to me. So I put a post up of a poll on my community tab for buddy reads, for, what people are interested in buddy reading out of my short list of books available for May. So the results of that are that I'm definitely doing a buddy read thread for Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens and for Arcadia by Iain Pears. And I will probably also do a buddy reads thread for Babel Tower by A.S. Byatt, which was in my TBR for the readathon, and I didn't get to it, and it's a bigger book, and I'd really rather not rush through it, so it's going to be on my buddy read schedule for next month. So those plus Quo Vadis, or Quo Vadis, I don't know how that vowel would be Latin. Latin is kind of like Italian. Anyway, Quo Vadis, that one is the only one that I've for sure got somebody else that I'm buddy reading with. And that will be Nicole from Noteworthy Fiction. Something we talked about last month. So that'll be fun. If you are interested in the books that I mentioned for buddy reads, definitely check out my Discord if you haven't been there already. That's where it's going to be. And the way I like to do buddy reading is if you are reading it and everybody else has not finished it, just use the spoiler tag system where you actually select the text that you think is going to be spoilery, and then you'll see options above where you've selected. And the one that looks like an eye, that's the thing you click so that you mark that part as spoilers in Discord. So, important to know if you do a lot of Discord and hadn't learned how to do that yet. So just mark the things as spoilers that probably are spoilers. And, read it when you're going to read it. Just, unlock the spoilers as you feel that you're ready for them. And that way nobody has to synchronize schedules too much. There may be some exceptions, like Rebecca. I didn't start reading until our sprint night for Rebecca. But now that we've all started it, we're reading at different paces. I watched the movie of Rebecca today, and suddenly have more to say about the book as well, because now I'm comparing them and thinking about how this story could have been different. So, yeah. And I marked the things that I thought were spoilery, comparing the movie to the book. And yeah, that's pretty much how I do buddy reads. Sometimes there'll be specific days we're going to talk about it, but mostly it's, here's a place where we are reading the same book and can talk about it because we're all kind of reading the same book at the same time, even if it's, same time as in all in the same month. So, yeah. I will be reading The Deep End of the Ocean through to about halfway this week. So I will start putting notes in the comments for that discussion thread on my Discord. And then I won't be starting The English Patient until next week. So that's kind of my schedule for the rest of the buddy reads going on this month. And I will be finishing Effi Briest this week, probably within the next 3 days. So once again, I'll just mark everything as spoilers that would be spoilers, so that if anybody else wants to read it, they can jump in. Barnacle buddy reads is the term everybody's playing with right now for basically inviting yourself into a buddy read that's already there. Definitely go for it. Barnacles are cute. And yeah, it's not even really officially a buddy read. It's just, I happen to have a little more experience with German literature and have the time to read it. So, I don't know if Nicole is even thinking about finishing it this month. But the thread is there. It should be fun. And it is a good book so far. So, yeah. Anyway, I will let you guys get on to the next video. Yeah, I'll do probably another video partway through the week, maybe, talking about what I'm going to be reading for May. I haven't done a video yet about my readathon experiences for the month-long readathon activities, like Orleum and the Dungeons and Dragons one, and Old School April. So I still need to do that. That may be coming soon. I'd love it if I don't have to worry about the cough before I do that. So, we'll see. Anyway, I'll talk to you soonish in the next video or in sprints somewhere online. Bye, guys!